it's Shari. Today I'm going to be making this card with a quote on it using one of my favorite alphabet sets. So I'm going to start out with the image that I want to use for this card, which is this little light bulb from the Turn Me On mini stamp set. I'm stamping it in narwhal ink, and then I'm going to stamp the little heart-shaped filament that goes on the inside with some carrot ink. I'll use the coordinating die to cut it out. And then I'm going to do a little coloring, and I'm just coloring it with a colored pencil so it's not too dark. I'm also using the Sun die cut, and I've cut this from some yellow shimmer cardstock, and I'm just marking a couple rays at the bottom that I'm actually going to trim off. This actually fits perfectly behind this light bulb and makes it look like the light is turned on. I did feel like the light bulb was a little too white, so I'm actually going in with a very pale blue and going around that light bulb to kind of tone it down a little bit, give it a little bit of color and interest. And then I'm going to go in with a yellow colored pencil and just sort of go around that filament to make it look like it's glowing. So this added some character to the light bulb, which I think really helps. So I'm using Smitty's ABCs to create the whole quote for the front of this card. I'm going to be building it line by line from the bottom to the top. I've got a piece of Blue Jay cardstock here that I've already put some anti-static powder tool all over because I'm going to emboss all these lines of text. So I laid the light bulb there just for spacing, it's not glued down. And I'm going to add the embossing powder every time I do a line, but I'm not going to heat it up until I'm completely done. So I'm not varying the fonts on this card like I've done on previous cards, but to give it some interest, I am varying when I use the uppercase letters and the lowercase letters. So I did highlight a couple words by making them all uppercase, where everything else is going to be lowercase. A couple tips to think about when doing a bunch of embossing like this, especially on dark cardstock like that, is to, even though you've used the anti-static tool, have a paintbrush handy and you can brush away some of the embossing powder that may be sticking to places it should not. So you can see I go in with a paintbrush and just kind of brush this stuff away around my letters. Another tip I have when doing a long sentiment or quote like this is to write it out so that you don't miss anything or misspell anything. Even better than writing it out is to take the time to stamp it out on a piece of scratch paper. That way you know the spacing of the stamps that you're using. But this also keeps you from missing a word or misspelling a word. If you have that beside you as a reference, which I actually do, you just can't see it on screen, then it's a good way to make sure that you don't mess up. So you can see on this line I had to go back in and fill in the U because there's only one U in this set. But because of the rectangular bases, you can line them up easily and leave enough space for that final letter. So I've got my last line stamped here. I'm going to carefully clean off any embossing powder around there. And then I'm going to heat it up all at once. I felt like doing this would keep my paper from warping too much versus melting every line as I stamped it. So that's why I took the time and care to stamp and put the powder on every line, but not emboss till the very end. Again, I've got my light bulb just kind of sitting there for spacing, and then I'm going to cut out this whole panel with the largest outside in rectangle. I decided to cut my rectangle after I had done all my embossing because I felt like it might help me fine-tune centering it up versus trying to get the spacing perfect on a rectangle that was already cut. I'm just going to go over it lightly with a damp chamois to get rid of all that anti-static powder that might be left because you usually see that a lot on this dark cardstock, and that just cleans it up. And then I'm going to add some starry speckles with some metallic gold watercolor. To give those speckles some dimension, I am actually using 2 of these shades of gold that come in this set. Next, I'm going to go in with some Distress Oxide. This is in Squeezed Lemonade. And I've got my blending brush. And I'm just lightly starting in the center where that light bulb's going to be. And I'm just going out from there. And I'm just adding it layer by layer, not trying to be too heavy, because I want it to look like a soft glow behind the light bulb. So you can see I keep putting my light bulb over there just to see how big it needs to be. Better to start small and light and add ink and work your way out until you get the look that you want. So now I'm ready to put this panel onto my card base. I've got a card base made from sunflower cardstock and I'm using some nice strong adhesive to put this on the card. The panel is a little warped just because of the heat embossing, but if you use a nice strong adhesive, it will lay flat and look great. I also like the yellow border that this creates around it, and I think it ties in great with the light bulb and the colors in the background. I'm adding on the light bulb using a little bit of liquid glue. And then finally, I'm going to embellish with a couple stars. So these stars are cut from some yellow glitter cardstock using that star die you see there, which is from the stitched journaling card. These make perfect little embellishments. And then finally, with a white gel pen, I'm just going to go in and write in very small letters the author of this quote. I know we don't always have the name of who said things, but in this case I did, and so I thought it was important to make sure I added that to the card. And now our card is all done. I really love the message that this card has, and I hope it's one that you all remember. If everything around you seems dark, look again. You may be the light. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.